Well, here we are. We're down to the pressure treated plywood. I moved that stack of roof sheeting over there, and last night after I finished making the videos, I worked until dark. I stayed for another hour laying out the walls and so forth, and I'll be showing you that in a minute. But you've all heard the old adage, work smarter, not harder. I have 3 sheets of this 3/4 inch pressure treated plywood to carry all the way over, and I gotta climb around stuff and go around the end before I get back to the shed floor back there. And I gotta tell you, it's heavy. So I have to split one of the sheets in half. So I'm gonna do myself a favor, and I'm gonna cut it out here before I carry it back, rather than carrying it back and then cutting it out there. Work smarter, not harder. Okay, I've got it all over here. Boy, I'll tell you what, 3/4 inch pressure treated plywood is heavy. I'm gonna guess 75 pounds for a full sheet. Plenty heavy and unwieldy. Thankfully the wind is just a little breeze today. What I wanted to show you before I nail this last sheet down, nail them all down, is one of the things I like to do is run out my tape measure, and I've already done it here, and make sure that where am I here? That my floor joists are lined up so that when I nail it, they're all straight. You know what I'm saying? So I go across and I mark them, and I did this half a sheet first before I laid the front sheet down so that I had those straightened out. And then I came along and I pulled my cord, my tape, and continued to get these lined up all the way down here. And I have this one nailed in, and this one here I don't have nailed down yet because it's a little bit off. I don't know if you can see my mark there or not. It's not much, probably not even enough to worry about, only 1/8 of an inch, but I like to keep them straight. And the key to this whole thing is your whole project is going to end up as good as your foundation. And I have built houses where the foundation was 2 inches out of square, and I had to compensate for it with my decking, and ended up having the decking hanging over 2 inches on the back side. I would always try to do it on the back side so that it wasn't noticeable from the front. My deck has got to be square, or the building's not going to be square, and you can't get your walls plumb and square. So I take a little extra time to do these things, and I did it when I was building houses. We would always pull our tape and straighten out our joists, and of course this is only 8-foot long floor joists, but when you're doing 16-foot long floor joists, you can imagine how much whoopage there can be in these things. That's just a quick tip, and as you can see, I'm doing it by hand, so I am making sure it's good. Then what I'm going to do, I'm probably good enough that I could start on one side with my nailing gun and put my first nail down and then just eyeball it across, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to snap lines. It's been a while since I was doing it, so I'm going to snap lines and make it easier on myself. Just a couple of tips to help you along the way, I hope. Okay, our deck is all nailed off, and watch out for that guy that's not paying attention when he's snapping his lines. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I went to a nail that was in between, because I don't just nail 16 on center across the back. Yeah, well, I caught it before I started nailing, thankfully. Whoop, got my finger in the way there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about layout. And I've already laid out my front and back walls and one gable end. I did them last night. And let's look at the back wall first. It is the simplest. The first thing you do is find a matching pair as straight as you can get and cut them to length. In this case, we're doing 12 foot exactly. And you'll notice that on mine I have this corner set up. One stud going this way and one going that way. That way when I nail my end wall in, I have plenty of nail, and the end wall will nail in this way. You picture this here like this, and then my end wall will go in like this, and theoretically if I was ever going to finish off the inside of it, I would have nailing on both sides for sheetrock or whatever. That's not going to happen with this shed, at least not in my lifetime. But anyway, you start off there and you go your 16 on centers all the way down. And my back wall has no windows in it, so it is just straight layout all the way and ends with the same setup on this end. Alright, now I can explain what I just did. And obviously I nailed my wall together, but you saw me running some nails along the bottom here. And what you didn't see before was that I had snapped a line 3.5 inches in, and I used those nails to get my wall lined up right on the line. And it looks like I need to bump this back a little bit. And I'll put a nail in there and drive it back a little bit. But we need to have this nice and straight. And then you saw me squaring it. And then the last thing I did was I put a nail down here to keep it square. And then I took a measurement and figured out that I want my siding to drop down 7.5 inches. I have 8 inches from the top of the deck to the bottom of my floor joist. And I'm going to keep it up 1/2 inch off of there, and it works out perfectly because my sheets are 8 feet long, and with it hanging out 7.5, it'll bring me up and leave me 1.5 inches hanging over here, which will be fine, which will allow for my top plate, because I'm going to double plate this to tie it all together before I put my rafters on. So my next project now is I'm just going to tack a couple of pieces of 2x4 along the top here to use as my guide for laying my sheets out. And that's the next thing we're going to do.